welcome to this very special session within our reopening series today. Can I start first of all by acknowledging the traditional owners of the lands on which we all gather today, and to pay my respects to their elders past, present and emerging. Well, today is a very special day, and we've got a great session to share with you. But before we get into that, I do want to do a bit of our general housekeeping, ladies and gentlemen. So just wanted to let everyone know, of course, as we normally do, your microphone has been muted and your camera has been turned off. So you don't need to worry about that in the system. That's all taken care of. Can I please ask today, if you have any questions, we want all of the questions to please be put into the Q&A box. It just gets a little bit too hard trying to manage and manipulate two different through chat and Q&A streams. So if you put all your questions into Q&A, that would be magnificent. And we also will, probably hold our questions until the end of the session, because there's quite a flow to what Visit Victoria will be presenting today. So we'll wait until we get to the end, and we will take all the questions at that time. And we've left time at the end to make sure that we do that adequately. And I'm also pleased to say that we are able to record this session today. So I just want everyone to know that the presentation today will be recorded, and it'll be made available as we normally do on our website following the event today. Can I also, I guess, first and foremost, thank our partners for today, of course, Visit Victoria. We're very, very pleased to be able to bring this update to you as we, inch ever closer to our reopening on Friday. The session today that Visit Victoria is sharing with us will give us all really good insight into some of the exciting campaigns that they have planned, but also the support that these campaigns will provide to all of our operators across the state as we, take those first steps into reawakening. So it is my pleasure today to welcome here with us today Brendan McClements, who of course everyone knows as the Chief Executive of Visit Victoria. Welcome, Brendan.
Thank you, Felicia.
And we've also got Shae Keenan with us this afternoon. And of course, Shae is the Chief Marketing Officer with Visit Victoria. Welcome to you as well, Shae. And we're also very, very fortunate to have amongst our ranks today the lovely Natalie Pizzini with Pizzini Wines. And Natalie's going to be talking about how, as an operator, what they're doing to prepare their business to welcome guests back, and also, I'm quite sure, just more generally and broadly across the King Valley. So we are going to move very quickly into the presentation because we've got lots of content to share with you today. So Brendan, I'm going to hand over to you, sir. Welcome.
Thank you, Felicia. Great to be back sharing in Melbourne tonight with Felicia. It's something we've done irregularly, although we haven't been seen together for a little while.
It's been too long.
It has been too long. I do know that VV and VTIC have been working really closely together over the last little while. We've enjoyed the relationship, and I think when I joined, and in that initial conference, the VTIC conference so long ago, at Crown, I flagged that our desire to become far more connected to the industry again is something that was hopefully going to be represented in the way VV operated from then on in. And look, industry will tell us ourselves, but we've certainly reorganised ourselves, worked hard to get closer to the industry, and we wanted to spend today giving people a bit of an understanding of where our heads are at and what you can expect from us over the next few months, and really pleased that obviously Shae is with us today, and delighted that Nat comes from the King Valley to talk to us about what it's like on the ground. So we're looking forward to hearing from Natalie as well. So let me start. I want to take you a bit of a cruise around the business, if you like, because VV is an organisation that has three separate streams inside of it. It has our major events, our business events, and the marketing, which we'll spend a bit of a time on today. But we want to give you this sense of the perspective on the current situation. That's a tour around the inside of VV, what's happening in the various parts of the organisation. And then probably dive a bit deeper into the reopening phase. What a great problem to have. I know it's stressful for so many people. I know it's been an incredible 18 months. No one wants to do this again. But we sit here today with knowing that all the problems we've got coming up are probably the right problems to have, if that makes sense. Potentially too many people, not enough, particularly in parts of Victoria than in Melbourne. But equally, we'll spend a bit of time on how we drive business back to Melbourne. That's the plan. So, Shae, I think our job is for me to call out you to change slides, the double act. So let me talk about this. The roadmap, I think, really helps us understand the recovery strategy and programs we can put in place. We think this will be different for regional and the CBD. That's no great insight, but clearly there are different sort of challenges that are likely to arise in regional Victoria as opposed to the CBD, and we're trying to calibrate ourselves to be able to support in both areas. I do want to call out something that we made a really deliberate choice on way back in 2020, which is our international presence. We're not quite there with international opening up, but we have maintained both the MCB and the VV offices all around the world. We haven't adjusted as other states have done, because we do believe investing in that part of the world, or that in the world, will pay off when things start opening up again. So I just want to call out, and I know many operators have continued to work with our product team around getting international ready, and we've been working hard to make sure that our offices are well connected, working with Tourism Australia to get ourselves ready. I'd call out the AO 2022, the Australian Open next year. It's going to be a milestone for the state in so many ways, and we've got a very clear idea in our head about using that fantastic asset to launch Melbourne and Victoria into the domestic and the international markets. We won't spend too much on that today, but I did want to just say, look, one of the assets we do have as a state is an events calendar that really gives us an opportunity to do some amazing things, and starting in January next year, we're looking forward to that. MCB has been incredibly nimble, Julia and the team, and I know they've been working closely with VTIC, particularly around the National Business Events Program. So we've been at a really tactical level, able to flip some of the focus there from international markets to trying to find national business. All business is good business, as we do know. So with MCB, the support of the state through the National Business Events Program, and working closely with Business Events Victoria, we've been able to start locking in some quality business that'll run through next year as international markets start to come back. And in the convention business, we are seeing those international markets being quite active. So while we've got a solid group next year, we are starting to see 23 and beyond good business being won through MCB. And look, this is probably Captain Obvious question or Captain Obvious comment, but in my time in this sort of role, Victoria's distinguished itself by being far more team orientated, Team Melbourne and Team Victoria, that will help drive our approach over the next while. We do want to be known for working closely with the industry, for working closely with industry organisations, and we know that's a competitive advantage for our state relative to some of the way the other states may or may not operate. And I'm not here to talk about what they may or may not be doing, but Melbourne's ability to organise itself, to collaborate, to work on behalf of each other is a distinguishing feature of the way in which we go about this. So we want to be part of Team Melbourne, we want to be part of Team Victoria, and the collaboration between VTIC and VV is part of that. I won't spend too much more on that, Shae, if you want to skip ahead one. So deep inside the business, this is a sort of summary, I think, of what we call our major events and business events calendars, so people can get a sense of how this is going to roll out over the next 12 to 24 months. My overall comment is I really feel strongly in favour of where we find ourselves on a business events and major events perspective. Next year is a stellar year from a major events perspective in particular, and we've got a good solid program of business events to help support the state as well. We'll see obviously the return of a couple of iconic things, Rip Curl Pro, the grand final, but we'll still see feeding through our calendar through the CBD and in regional locations, outstanding one-off exhibitions, events, whatever they might be. And I know we announced earlier this week, Elvis coming up to Bendigo in during next year, which is outstanding performance by the Bendigo Gallery to lock in that. But we are going to see a really strong events calendar to help support the state, and it informs the thinking we've got about where we want to take the market piece a little bit further on. We flip forward one more, Shae. And this is just I'm pretty sure everyone can read, so I'm not going to go through each of these slides in detail, but this is just a flag that we are starting to see the return of business events as well. There is business being won. We want to build a strong calendar of business events, and you'll see that over the course of the months ahead as we've locked in the National Business Events Program and we start to see more international wins happening. One more, Shae, if we could. And I guess one of the great things that's happened in the last week is we've got a better understanding of what reopening looks like. And like so many of us, I'm so thrilled about the extent to which the state has chosen to really allow the organisations that are here to get on and do their job as best they can. So we're seeing great opportunities. I must say, for all the stress and moments of time that we're in, I think the overall trend line is so positive in where we want to get to. And I think at this point, Shae, I pass over to you to work through in detail some of the marketing response, which I hope many of the people on the call can see and work with as we go through this. In introducing Shae, the one thing I'd start to flag, which I don't think from memory we've covered here, is the work around the brand framework that Shae's leading. And I know many people on the call will have been part of a consultation process as we go through that. That's called out in the state's overarching strategy to deal with this, that VV will develop a brand framework, and Shae, unsolicited and without notice, may just spend a couple of minutes towards the end of this talking about the brand framework as well. But I'll pass to you, Shae.
Great. Thank you, Brendan. It's great to be here today. The sun's shining. We've got the weekend to look forward to, so thank you, Felicia, for facilitating this opportunity for us. I will, as Brendan said, get into some more specifics around our reopening plans, but I wanted to start by sharing some key consumer insights to give you a sense of the mood of the nation and what Australians and Victorians are thinking as we emerge from lockdown. Let's see, sorry. Okay, there we go. Sorry, wouldn't be a webinar without a minor technical glitch. Now I want to start with this chart, and it does feel like a rather negative chart insofar as this research made available to us through Tourism Australia shows that Australians are feeling pretty divided and pretty disconnected, which I suppose we can all understand given what we've been through. The reason for sharing it is, I guess, just to call out the important role that travel plays as a direct antidote to these kinds of feelings. We know that at the heart of travel is connection and reconnection, and that couldn't be more important in an Australian context. So we've got an experience that Australians are looking for as they're feeling this sense of disconnection and being divided. And in addition, this is some research from our consumer sentiment tracking amongst Victorians. And this shows that Victorians really strongly buy into the notion of buying local, keeping local, and rallying together as a state as we emerge from lockdown. So I think we're going to see that in droves as we see Victorians head to the highways at 6 p.m. on Friday this evening. So there is a very strong sense amongst Victorians to support our industry. And as Brendan mentioned, we know that Melburnians certainly are feeling safe about travelling into regional Victoria. And there is a sense here from research we've just completed, so this is from research undertaken in October, that there's an understanding of the safety measures that they're going to see in place in regional Victoria as we emerge from lockdown. And this one's really important. I want to spend a bit of time just talking about this. Our brand is still incredibly strong. There's no doubt that we've seen extensive coverage about the impact of lockdown on Melbourne. But this is research from our brand health study, which we've actually been undertaking for 20 years. We ask Australians which one capital city do they associate with a range of different tourism experiences? And as you can see here, I'm happy to say that we are the dark blue line, and you can see that Australians far and above identify Melbourne as the city that they associate with all of these experiences. Yes, we've had a bit of a decline year on year, but when we look at it holistically, and to call out major events, for example, we still hold a 30 percentage point lead over Sydney as being recognised as a major event city. So Australians are still thinking of Melbourne when it comes to these types of experiences. And also from our brand health research, these experiences are exactly what they're looking for in a post-COVID or a COVID normal environment. So this rather tricky chart maps on the y-axis the experiences that Australians are looking forward to, and it maps them against how closely associated with Melbourne those experiences are. So the top right quadrant is where we want to be. And it gives us really good confidence that what we have in spades as a state are exactly the types of experiences that Australians want to get out and explore right now. And we think this puts us in an incredibly strong position as we move into this phase of a COVID normal world. So in thinking about what we need to do and how we can best support the industry, particularly over the next 6 to 12 months, there's a job to be done clearly to prepare consumers for what travelling in a COVID normal world looks like, and I'll talk a bit more about that. But as Melbourne and Victoria is renowned for being a vibrant and energetic city, there's a clear need to rebuild, I guess, Australians' confidence that the type of experience they know and love in Melbourne and Victoria will be here when they visit again. And as Brendan showed us just before, that incredible calendar of major events is an amazing weapon that we've got in our artillery, and it'll certainly form a cornerstone of our marketing approach. And we've got campaigns ready to go. We'll be starting, we've already started this week, and we will have campaigns rolling out over the weekend. Hopefully many of you will be familiar with Click for Vic, which we developed in the midst of lockdown. But almost a year ago today, we launched the Stay Close, Go Further campaign, which encourages Victorians to get out amongst their own backyard. And we shine a light on our passionate makers and creators to build that emotional connection. Get Set was launched in February this year. Many of you may not have seen it because it was rolled out in interstate markets, and it aimed to stimulate immediate visitation by showcasing the depth and breadth of Melbourne's offer and highlighting our new experiences. And we'll be running this campaign nationally. So not only are we going to be telling interstate people to come and visit Melbourne, but we'll certainly be telling Victorians to get back into the city that we love. So strategically, our approach, as I mentioned before, using the major events calendar, not just the major events calendar, but the events that the diversity of events that happen right throughout the state, to create those key reasons to visit. They provide a fantastic way of rebuilding confidence and demonstrating that we're back, we're thriving, and we're vibrant. And we have the Australian Open as a huge global platform to enable us to do that. And hopefully, a Boxing Day test with thousands of people at the G, which will also do a great job. We'll be kicking off these activities pretty much from this weekend, which is fantastic. So we'll have advertising back in Victoria very soon and in the rest of Australia in the coming weeks. And as Brendan mentioned, international is still very much a part of our focus. We've maintained our presence, working with many of you and working with Tourism Australia. We're working on a market-by-market approach to ensure that we are ready as those markets reopen. We've seen some positive progress in recent weeks, and we certainly hope that continues over the coming weeks and months. I'm delighted to be able to talk to you about a new initiative, Travel Kind, which really we've been working on with VTIC as a way of helping to address some of the challenges that we know many of you are concerned about, to help consumers get used to travelling in this new COVID world. So this campaign, which really kicked off yesterday and will gear up in earnest over the coming days, really aims to encourage Melburnians and Victorians to plan ahead, not just the accommodation, but the pub meal and the tour and other experiences, to get out and about amongst perhaps lesser known areas that may not be as crowded. And of course, to be considerate and be kind when they're travelling. Travelling is a really positive experience after all. So this was launched yesterday. We had a great story in the Herald Sun shining a light on the business operators and how excited they are to welcome guests back to their part of the world. And we're using and have great support from many of you in helping us get this message out there. We also had Brendan, as you can see here, talking with Channel 9 last week, also reiterating the message about travelling kind when people are getting back out into the swing of things in terms of travel. Let's just remember some of the challenges that our industry are facing. And we'll kick off even more PR around a particular opportunity we have. As luck would have it, World Kindness Day takes place on the 13th of November. So we'll be putting a big PR and social media push behind that. Here's a sneak peek of some of the creative that you'll see rolling out in print media and social media over the coming weeks. And we think it does a really nice job of trying to personalise our industry and remind Victorians that people are at the heart of this industry. And really pleasing to be able to share that we have created some toolkits and assets for the industry, for you, that we hope might assist you navigate through this period. And we'd love you to get involved and we'd love you to get behind the campaign. On our corporate website, you'll find a toolkit that has key messages that you might like to integrate into your own communications with clients. We'd love you to use the Travel Kind hashtag. We've got a dedicated social media tile that we're all going to post on World Kindness Day. And we also have some materials that you might like to print off and put in your own businesses as a gentle reminder to visitors to travel kind. And all of that information is available on our corporate website. Looking ahead, as we evolve the implementation of Stay Close, Go Further, we're going to have new assets to bring to the table. So we've already shined a light on Melbourne, on Gippsland and High Country, and they'll definitely continue to be in the mix. But we've also got new assets. We've got new television commercials ready for the Murray, which looks spectacular. Finishing touches being put on some assets for the Great Ocean Road. And very soon we hope to be filming in the Grampians to be able to bring those assets into the mix and show Victoria new places that they can get to, that they can travel to and go further. Next, I wanted to share with you the Get Set campaign, which is going to run nationally. As I said, many of you won't have seen it because of its play interstate. This is just one of, I think, 10 or 13 executions that we have that really aim to get people back into the city and showcase just how much we have and how many new attractions we have for people to see. So cross your fingers for me and let's hope this plays for you.
Hi.
Hi.
We were thinking of having a cruisy day.
Maybe grab a pastry and a coffee.
See some street art.
Maybe go to a museum.
Grab a gelato.
And have afternoon tea.
Any suggestions?
We were fortunate enough to work not with a creative agency, but with Working Dog, who may be more familiar to you from the work they've done in television and certainly movies like The Castle, but we think it certainly captured the vibe of Melbourne. These are some other assets for the Get Set campaign in print that I think really showcase just that, as I mentioned, the depth of experiences that we have on offer and importantly, our major events. We're fortunate to have a pretty extensive ecosystem that will allow us to take these campaigns to reach millions and millions of Australians, whether that be through our paid activity with all of the key media networks, but also through our key partners and our event partners as well, when we think about the extensive databases and audiences that they have as well. So when we put that together, it becomes quite a powerful ecosystem and a large audience that we're able to ensure we get Melbourne and Victoria very much in the front of people's minds. The Australian Open, as Brendan mentioned, is a really unique opportunity, and it couldn't be timed better this year to align with our reopening. Through the relationship we have with Tennis Australia and also with the Nine Network, we're able to make this a truly integrated approach and a truly global moment for Melbourne and Victoria, whether that be the Today Show broadcasting from Melbourne or the Get Set campaign running in the broadcast of the actual event, through to the international broadcasts that we have into key markets such as US, China and Southeast Asia. We're fortunate enough to have seen some of the plans that Tennis Australia have, and it is going to be a really spectacular event and in many ways a love letter to the city and to the state. We have a great owned audiences and a special call out to the official visitors guide, which is really made possible through the partnership that we have with many of you. We've obviously pivoted in the last 12 months, and it's seen, you know, 1 million copies of this publication in the hands and in the homes of Victorians and also people in interstate markets. And certainly we hope that very soon we'll have it in the hands of international guests as those markets reopen. Our social channels have been incredibly important to us, particularly during lockdown, and particularly in being able to keep Melbourne and Victoria front and centre in global markets, and there'll be a critical role for us too as we start to reopen. And also, and critically, are our partnerships in the distribution space. We've got fantastic relationships with all of the key airlines, and this enables us to help drive conversion at the times when industry need it most, to work with the airlines to look at introducing sale fares to stimulate visitation, but also to take advantage of the incredible databases and networks that these organisations have in their own right. And we do have campaigns about to commence with all of those partners listed here, and you'll see that activity start to kick off in the next week or so. And finally, what's started this week and over the coming weeks, you will see Melbourne and Victoria front and centre on our TVs and on our radios. Incredible broadcast blitz, as we're calling it, that's going to take Melbourne and Victoria into the homes of so many through Nine News, 3AW, the Today Show, and even the Living Room. So that's going to be a fantastic way of keeping our state and our city very much in the front of people's minds. It feels rather fitting to end on a slide with one Pizzini as we're about to hand over to another. So with that, I'll hand back to you, Felicia.
Thank you. Thanks very much. Just there we go. That was fantastic. There's some great comments. People have been putting lovely comments in the chat, Shae. So well done. I think everyone is really excited about what's on offer, and also that, you know, where we are right now. It's just generally a really exciting time. So we'll get to the questions in a moment, but before we do that, Natalie, I'm going to turn over to you because I know you've got some great ideas that you guys have been embracing in the King Valley as you look to welcome everybody back to that gorgeous part of the world.
Thank you, Felicia, and thank you, Shae. But the other Pizzini was not my sister, that was my mother.
That's
right. We get mixed up a lot.
It's had great Mediterranean skin, Natalie.
So we'll see if I can navigate this for you. Thank you, everyone, for staying on and listening to this section of the chat. A theme around kindness is king has been playing on our minds for the last couple of, I suppose, month or so, as we've started to navigate the staggered opening up to Metro this weekend. But just to put some things into perspective for you, I thought I'd just put up some pictures to to show you what we do in the King Valley. So Pizzini, we have Pizzini wines, and our brand is very much based around warmth and generosity and that Italian style spirit. And we also have the Mountain View Hotel, where we say our hotel is like, it's the heart of the community. And the reason why I used this as a start is because our staff have been dealing with visitors from regional and the border bubble for the last month or so, coming to visit us, and some of the interactions that they've had has brought to the forefront our maintaining our brand integrities and also protecting our team as visitors are navigating the COVID regulations. So we really are very keen to protect the team from any aggression that potentially might happen with opening up, and also the brands as well. So, sorry, I'm just going to do that and that. So we're based in the King Valley, and we've been lucky enough to be in a position to navigate open for business COVID regulations for the last few weeks now. We've welcomed guests from regional Victoria as well as residents in the border bubble. We've been working to strict guest numbers and have had to check IDs. This experience has provided us with some very useful insights into visitor behaviour as guests navigate the COVID regulations associated with the hospitality industry, such as showing ID to prove place of residence and checking in. And that has been, that process to check IDs has not just been for our regional Victorian visitors, but also our guests from the border bubble, which has its own complexities. During this period, we've kept an eye on what's been happening internationally with Freedom Day, when Freedom Days have arrived in particular countries, just to get an understanding of how other tourism businesses have coped with the rush of visitors, managing COVID regulations and the negative guest behaviours that can come from following the rules. Pizzini have used these insights to help our team to prepare for the very welcomed rush of guests that we hope come from 6 p.m. this Friday. So we've been having weekly meetings with both the operations teams from Pizzini and the Mountain View Hotel to talk about the issues associated with enforcing check-ins, address checks and density limits. We've found that the majority of guests were really happy to comply with what we're asking them to do, but a few have caused us a little grief by being aggressive to our staff and on occasion leaving negative reviews online. And more so for the hotel, because sometimes it's a different customer that might go to the hotel as opposed to coming and doing a wine tasting at Pizzini. So we've been finding the processes of checking ticks and quite time consuming sometimes, especially if there's bigger groups arrive together, and especially if groups from Victoria arrive and then groups from New South Wales, with, just checking the place of residence. So to safeguard our brands, both Pizzini and the hotel, and to support the team, we've implemented the following over recent weeks. So we have a booking confirmation. So whenever someone, and many of you may have already implemented this, but I highly recommend it. On any booking that we have for accommodation, a wine tasting experience, or a reservation for the hotel's restaurant, we have put together these words to basically say, please know that when you visit us, we are complying with the public health orders of the day. And if that may or may not require you to wear a mask or check in or confirm your vaccination status. And we've tried to keep the wording quite balanced and kind. We've also, I think when my dad actually had to put the signage up the other day, he was a little concerned we'd gone a little bit overboard, but now he's completely changed his mind. But what we were finding when we were talking with the teams were that to start the conversation with our visitors before they even got out of the car was going to help the conversation when guests came to actually to the welcome station. So we've erected some signage at both the hotel and at cellar door to set it, and we've done this to set our expectations of our visitors to our venues in a kind way. We've done it to help reduce check-in time, as guests already know what is expected of them on arrival, and they'll have their phones with them ready for use. So many times we've had guests come, but they've left their phone in the car. We've done it to let visitors know that if they don't want to wear a mask, and now if they are not vaccinated, then maybe a visit today is not the best idea, and that but they know this before they even get out of their car. So this has helped. We actually put the signage up on Friday, and we've had the teams already remark how beneficial that has been to start the conversation before the customers actually arrived at the welcome guest. And forgive my little photos here. Dad's taken these on his iPhone for me, but really we've started the signage right from entrance. And we're basically, hello, thank you for visiting us. The next sign is our masked up team can't wait to see you. Then we've got don't forget your phone. We love to see check-in ticks. And the last one is thanks for visiting. Grab your mask and ID, then head in to meet our friendly team. We need to see your green check-in tick, and then you can relax and enjoy some wine. And for the hotel, it's a little bit different. The arrival time is not as long. So we say, thanks for visiting and blah, blah, blah. So you get the idea. We've also printed the instructions for adding your vaccine certificate to the Services Vic app, and we keep these instructions at the welcome desk just for those who may not have completed that step yet. And we've let our front, and most importantly, we've let our front of house teams know that they have our family's full support in upholding the COVID regulations. We know that if we receive a negative review across any of the platforms over the coming few weeks, that it could actually be the result of guests not happy about complying with what we are trying to ask them to do in a kind way. And that has given the staff some relief. And lastly, we are constantly talking to our teams and asking if they're okay. They've been through this too. They're just as anxious as everybody else. And it's been important for our family to recognise that. Being on the front line can be exhausting, and I've said to them, we're in a marathon, not a sprint. The next 6 months will be busy, and as we navigate the complexities of increased visitation, potentially being short-staffed and having to uphold the regulations, we need to take care of ourselves. And I think, some of the benefits are already flowing through to us through guests thanking us for taking the extra effort to look after them, and also to the staff already saying that by having the signage at the start of people entering has reduced the issues when it comes to the actual welcome and check-in spot. So we've been thinking about it for a little while, and we really have taken these steps to protect the team from anything that may come, and also to protect our brands. We think both have been really important. So
yeah. That's wonderful, Natalie. Thank you. It was really interesting listening to what you're doing, because just yesterday we did a session on managing aggressive behaviour. And one of the things that Alan Briggs spoke about was, the first phase is around prevention. And one of the things he said was to try and have touch points to your guests before they ever arrive, because it really does help to alleviate some of that pressure, and you're not delivering all this information to them when they stand in front of you. So the things around your signage and your communication pre-arrival, these are all the things yesterday that were talked about. So great to see that in practice.
Yeah, and I think, we have a lot of junior staff on the front line. So we've got to be able to protect them as much as possible. And it's not, in our experience, it is not the norm that we will receive this. Most people are just happy to be out and about, excited to show their certificates, happy to check in. It's just to protect us from the small minority that aren't.
Yeah, that's very true. I get offended now if someone fails to ask me for my certificate. Shae, just quickly, one of the obviously always the constant question is around availability of the slides, or where can people find? Is this stuff loaded up on your website? There's just a few comments about wanting to know how they get access to what you shared.
Yeah, sure. Look, I think one of our colleagues is going to post a link, it's just there now, to the corporate website where all the tools and assets exist. So hopefully everyone can find the materials in that link. Thanks, Felicia.
That's great. Yeah, they're just in the chat, guys, rather than in the Q&A. So you go in there, you'll find the link. We do have some questions, which I'll start at the top and we'll work our way through. This is from Megan in Rochester, and travel kind, love it, sounds fantastic. We are painting silos in mid-November, which is a fantastic reason to travel. How do we get Rochester involved in this?
Oh, excellent. I can see it now. Travel kind on the silo. I love it.
You got outdoor in your budget there, Shae?
Is there someone they should speak to?
Is that more silos in Rochester? I've been to the silos in Rochester. So adding to the kingfisher or the birds up there is something else as well, is it? That's terrific. Well, the first thing is to let us know.
Absolutely.
So one of the other things that we will be doing is hitting the phones to bring as many media to this state as possible. So our PR and FMLs team are working overtime, trying to organise as many interstate and overseas guests who can come and talk about Victoria. So the more places we have to send them, the more that we know about it, the better off we'll be. So to know there's new assets at Rochester is the starting point for us.
Yeah.
Okay,
great. Felicia, just on that, I'll also ask that one of my colleagues to add into the chat our PR and social emails. They are fantastic. So any of that new news that you have, if you can send that material to, I think it's pr@visitvictoria.com.au and social@pr, but we'll get those emails in the chat for you. That's a really easy way of keeping us in the loop. And we love new news, so please do keep it coming.
And we love the vision for our socials as well. So any photo, time lapse, and anything you've got along the way that helps us get the message out. It's always a popular part of our Instagram audiences.
Thanks, Chuck.
Next question is just around Stay Close, Go Further. When does the TVC launch?
Good.
You want to go first, Shae?
Soon, we hope. Look, we'll have some online material that will come out this week. As we've opened up, so too does every other advertiser in the state. So getting TV availability is tricky at the moment, but we're working. We've fortunately got the might and the weight of the state's media buying agency through OMD behind us. And we have some broadcast opportunities, but we're happy to share more detail about when specifically the TV will commence, but we're hopeful that will commence in the next few weeks.
Felicia, it's fair to say that Shae's got her elbows out, pushing away to the front of the queue there. The issue is not the ability or the desire to do it. It's literally the ability to get the slots, really competitive TV market at the moment. So
it's
we've got the assets, we've got the budget, we've got the approvals. It's actually, there's no blockage on our side. And this is where Shae's sharp elbows come into it. How do we get ahead of everyone else who wants to be there?
Sounds good. Sounds good. One of the things I just thought of also, Shae, might be useful if people, like hopefully everyone on the call is signed up to your newsletters and making sure that they're getting that information, because you'll be passing it through those channels. So you might want to just maybe the guys put in the chat as well for those people who possibly are not already clicked into your newsletters to make sure that they register. So I would have thought that would be important for them.
Yeah, LinkedIn. Yeah, there's the few corporate social channels that we've got as well. So
yeah, maybe if the guys post that in the chat as well, everyone can sort of copy that over. Next question has to do with the Get Set campaign. Is that actually going to extend to regional Victoria, or is it just a Melbourne only campaign?
Yeah, so it will run all across Victoria. So it will be in regional Victoria, trying to get people from regional Victoria into Melbourne. And also even just within Melbourne, getting people, you know, from the north side, dare I say, crossing the river, going south side, and then of course interstate. So it will truly be a national campaign. It focuses on Melbourne, but it also shines a light on some of the new experiences within regional Victoria as well.
Yeah, so we know annually there's about $1.7 billion of business that comes from regional Victoria to Melbourne. We need to get that moving to help Melbourne. Regional Victoria benefits from roughly $3.3 billion coming out from Melbourne into regional Victoria. So, and we need to get that moving as well. So there'll be no shortage of activity from us, and we probably likely to run both of those campaigns in the state, in Victoria, to do slightly different jobs. We need to move Melburnians around Melburnians, Victorians into Melbourne, as well as Melburnians out to regional Victoria. And we know there's a real opportunity there. I think you've seen some of the research we did recently where 71% of Melbourne travellers are looking to move into somewhere in regional Victoria over the next 4 months, which is a great starting point. It plays to this desire that we all have to support each other. That's a hallmark of what we've seen of Victoria during this phase as well. A pride in the state and a recognition that we can help each other if we think about it a bit. So we like the hand. We don't like where we've been, but we like the hand we've been dealt right today. You know, so we'll play it as aggressively as we can, and we think we've got a good chance of picking up the jackpot, just to extend the metaphor beyond where it should have stopped. But anyway.
And you know, I think it's interesting, Brendan, and you touched a little bit on this as well, Natalie, that there's a lot of comfort in travelling in states where, you know, the vaccination rates are high. You know, I mean, it's interesting watching from afar. WA and Queensland are really very slow off the mark in terms of their vaccination rates. But increasingly, and I've heard this from many operators, that there is, as you said, Natalie, this sense of comfort that, you know, I feel safe. And I think, you know, here in Victoria, people are probably feeling pretty safe.
I've certainly followed the vaccination rates by LGA, strangely enough, along the way, and you know, because you can see incredible levels of details. And I look at the LGA rates for our parts of Victoria that aren't Melbourne, and there's not one that's not plus 90%, and I don't think there's very few that are plus greater than 95% in first doses, and most are well and truly over 80% in second doses. It's extraordinary success in those parts of the state, which really, I think, as you say, Felicia, would give people a huge amount of comfort that now Melburnians coming in, everything's been done right to do it safely. Let's get this part right. Travel kind. We can do what we can do as before people leave. Natalie's outlined there. What a great way to remind people when they get there what to do. All this working together gives us a huge opportunity to do it well.
Yeah, and I think, Natalie, your points around how you've seen that transition, which was a bit of a surprise, I think, for a lot of people.
Yeah, I think it feels good from an operator to be putting something in place to help the team, and to make, you know, to reinforce that our brand is looking after guests when they arrive. I think it's a two-pronged approach, and I think if all brands did that, put Victoria way ahead of every other state.
Yeah, You're very right. And the good news is we've had lots of practice to get our heads around stuff. Some of the other states are going to be, I reckon, in for a bit of a surprise when those borders open. And yeah, we, at least as hard as it's been, it's given us a really good learning opportunity. So I guess it's one thing we can be thankful for. There was just a quick one that disappeared here, Shae, but I'm going to assume it had to do with getting access to the e-newsletter so that they could share it through their databases. But again, it's this issue of registering to make sure that you're on the distribution list for your newsletters, which the guys have posted in the chat for you, ladies and gentlemen. Question from Fiona. Shae, looking on the corporate visitVictoria.com, where are the industry assets? Are they loaded yet, Shae, or when will they go up?
They are loaded, and Fiona, if you follow that link that's actually in the chat function, from Holly Little, that will take you directly to where the assets are.
Great. Next question here. It's an interesting one. Are there any trade or travel industry events that VV are planning on attending with or without industry, either here in Australia or overseas? And is there a trade events calendar that could be shared with all the other event stuff that was posted?
Yeah, that's a really good, it's a really good one. Yes, so the short answer is yes, we can. And the other part is yes, we are. So we're working with, look, we're really mindful that we can play a really important job of helping our industry access these markets. So as soon as it's possible for us to travel again, whether that be through trade missions or even ATE next year, we want to make sure that Melbourne and Victoria is there and front and centre. And we want to do that in partnership with industry. So Felicia, if I can take that one on notice and let me come back to your members with some of the a line of sight over the trade events that we see happening and how we're facilitating some of those. I mean, a lot of them are happening virtually. And that's been, you know, it's actually been a fantastic opportunity, particularly for our regional managers. And I know many of you have participated and supported VV's offices overseas in those virtual shows. You know, the number of Aussie specialists that and training that's been done has been phenomenal. But of course, we all want to get back to in-person events. That's our desire as well.
Yeah, we sure do.
The team is travelling and attending in overseas markets. So Europe and America are very active in this space. And I'd call out that in the business event space, we will be running AIM in March next year as a restart of the business events piece. We're just looking at trying to see how we might supersize that, if that's the right way to describe it, to showcase everything that we can do, given we're playing in a national business event space at the moment. And obviously business events in regional Victoria are starting to be increasingly important along the way. So AIM is a highlight for us. It's something that we are pretty close to. So that's one I'd call out for March next year.
Yeah, that's a good one too, Brendan, because we've missed that one 2 years in a row now. So that's terrific. Quick question, is there a timeline for a Yarra Valley campaign?
I think, look, I think Yarra Valley is absolutely included through Stay Close, Go Further. I think some of the products and experiences also feature through Get Set. So I guess rest assured that from a Stay Close, Go Further perspective, all of our key regions are showcased definitely through that campaign. And again, in the Get Set campaign, and of course, what we're showcasing to international through international markets, through our PR and social activity, Yarra Valley is absolutely a key destination in the mix.
Yeah, it's worth just, sorry, Felicia, I'll just make a comment there as well. One of the strange things that happens in the sort of mass communication world is a campaign such as our High Country Stay Close, Go Further has the effect of rising all tides, if that's made. All boats lift when we do that, whether you're in the Grampians or whether you're in the Yarra Valley or Mornington Peninsula. We know when we put High Country on, it just raises people's interest in travelling outside of Melbourne. While it might say at the end, particularly one region, it actually works for all regions. And it's one of the, we see it all the time, particularly with our interstate competition, when they run their campaigns in our markets, actually, it's really good for us. So the sort of the traditional advertising campaign is sort of big, beautiful vistas and drone shots that we see so much of lovely parts of Australia with wineries and Indigenous experiences and sun-kissed moonlights and all sorts of it. When anyone from any other market does that in our place, it's great for us, right? Because people more quickly, the lack of attribution that happens in that sort of wallpaper style ad that we see from other markets is really good for us. Mm-hmm. So what we know in Stay Close, Go Further, and we've tried to do it differently. We're trying to do a focus on people who are really creative in our part, tell a big story through telling a small story. We know it just has the effect of helping all parts of Victoria. So yes, while we haven't as yet, and we will get to a Yarra Valley execution, everything we're doing helps the Yarra Valley or Mornington or Bellarine or Gippsland or the Great Ocean Road, even though it doesn't say it at the end, because that's the way it works in people's heads.
Yeah, it's a very, very good point. Next question, I'm going to combine two because they're sort of kind of related. Looking at the conversion side of the campaigns now, guys, will they drive leads exclusively to campaign partners, or will there be leads driven, direct to operators, wineries, etc., which kind of links into the second one around encouraging midweek bookings, but then also book direct to operators as well?
Yeah, look, that's a good question. I think that the answer is it'll be a combination of all of the above. So obviously, when we're working with airline partners, we're linking into their channels and platforms so that people can book. We've also been working with TAA and AAOA on staycation, direct sort of staycation campaigns through social media, and we've built a dedicated staycations page on our website so that we can direct people to the listings on our webpage, and people can go and book direct with the operator. We know that that's incredibly important as well. So it will be a combination of the two. The majority of our advertising leads everybody through to visitvictoria.com. So again, reinforcing the importance of having a listing. That's the simplest way to effectively leverage our campaigns. The midweek point, it's a really interesting one, something that we're definitely thinking of. We know that particularly when interstate visitation comes back, our Melbourne hoteliers will likely enjoy good solid occupancy rates on weekends, and midweek will be a challenge for regional Victoria as well as the city. So we are looking at that. What occurs to us is that there's also, because of lockdown, there's a huge amount of Australians who have an enormous amount of annual leave. We think there's opportunities to encourage Australians to create their own long weekends by extending their trip beyond a weekend into Monday or Tuesday or Thursday or Friday. So that's something we're definitely looking at. And in addition, we know that the way that people work is going to be different. I saw an article just this morning about, particularly in Sydney, anticipating that the work week will remain people working from home for a period of time. So the work from anywhere concept, I think, provides an opportunity for us to encourage people to work from anywhere in Melbourne and in regional Victoria midweek.
That's right.
So they're really good questions, something that we're mindful of, as well as also thinking ahead to the softer period. As we know, when we come out of the summer period and school holidays leading into winter, that's going to be a time of year that Visit Victoria will really want to focus on to drive visitation at the time industry needs it.
Yeah, that's a good point. And it was a question a little bit further down around, what happens when we get out of that peak and start to run into our troughs and off season. I'm just conscious of time, but I'm going to try to combine just two other questions, which should be pretty straightforward answers. Just one was on the issue of the research that you shared there. Shae, is there any chance to share that with folk, or is that more proprietary? Just a question of getting.
I think
it was actually really good research.
Yeah, I think the travel kind research, I think we can share. So can I take that?
Yeah, that was the question relative to the travel kind research. That was exactly what they were looking for. And it kind of leads to the state brand framework that you mentioned. Is there going to be an opportunity when you guys will be looking to maybe share that more broadly as well?
Yeah, absolutely. And I saw the question in the chat. I think in my haste to get to Natalie, I didn't touch on that. But we talked a lot about this at the conference, about the need for and the opportunity for Melbourne and Victoria to be really unified about what makes us different, and also to dial up the emotion. We've done a lot of consultation with the regional tourism boards, who've been fantastic at providing input, as well as consultation with other groups. And the process from here is really around looking at the toolkits and the visual, how that comes to life in a visual sense, so that Visit Victoria, our industry, all of our partners have consistent tools that we can use to present a consistent picture of Melbourne and Victoria to the world. So yes, in the coming months, we'll be able to share more about how that project is progressing.
Great, wonderful.
Sorry, Felicia. It's fair to say we're looking at making sure we make the most of that by, in our world, we're thinking maybe 6 months from now we'll have for want of a better phrase, a brand campaign that can, position the state. So I'm not committing to it, but the current thinking suggests that that's where we'll head. A brand framework, a brand campaign coming in around the quieter times of the year. That's where we're currently exploring how we make the most of that step change. We're not broken at the moment. It's a matter of how can we get better. And if we're going to do this, I really want to make sure we've synchronised it in a way that gets absolutely milks every dollar of value from it that we possibly can.
Yeah, good, Brendan. Thank you. And probably just one last question we'll have time for, because I'm really conscious we're running over, but I promised everyone we would keep going because I know these questions are important in everyone's minds. But just the favourite question in relation to, obviously, we're doing a lot around Melbourne CBD, but would you like to talk a little bit, Shae or Brendan, just in terms of that broader Greater Melbourne proposition and bringing our precinct areas into the limelight?
So I saw Richard's question. That's like a half volley outside off stump for us at the moment. Right? So Richard's exactly right. So there are other parts of this. Is not a Melbourne CBD. When we talk Melbourne, we don't, in our language, in a marketing sense, don't mean CBD. Yeah. And when Shae said earlier in the Get Set campaign that we have so many different executions, many of those call out the bigger than CBD areas. So we've got, day trips, we've got close by neighbourhoods, any new places, and we've tapped into, Yarraville's places, one of the 10 top coolest suburbs in the world. It makes the list, so in the way that we're able to, and that advertising again is different to what you've normally seen from us. In our language, we call it far more retail. We're down to the granular level, highlighting particular areas. So the structure's basically the same, setup's the same, lines are different, but there's this bit in the middle where we just quickly wash through the extent of experiences that are in Melbourne and in Victoria. So in that form, in many of the other executions, you'll see all parts of the state and all parts of the city highlighted there. So it's a really good question. I know one which has been passionate about in the past, but we have found an executional style that allows us to articulate the freshness of Melbourne's product beyond the CBD, which is so much a part of the visitor experience these days.
I was going to call that too, Felicia, that the areas surrounding the CBD are really important because, particularly for interstate markets, they are new news.
Yeah.
So they provide a really important strategic tool for us to shine a light on some new areas of the city. Yeah. Remember, repeat visitation is incredibly high, particularly into Sydney. So neighbourhoods play a really important strategic role for us.
And attractions like urban surf, for example.
Incredible.
Yeah. And I think too is we're trying to encourage people to go down the roads less traveled, and don't necessarily go to the usual suspects, as I lovingly call them. So there's opportunities under that whole plan, and it fits into that kind of safety piece as well. People feel better when they're not necessarily in the big crowded environments. So lots of great opportunities. Guys, I'm conscious we're almost 10 minutes over, so I might close there, but I just want to say thank you so much for sharing everything that you have with us. I know that there's so much work going on behind the scenes all the time, and it's hard to really help everyone understand the level that everyone is beavering away at, I'm sure, trying to get all this stuff ready to go, but also with an eye to the future around, yes, we need to do some immediate work to prepare everybody for reopening, but, you've also got this long-term game in mind as well. And where are we heading as a destination, and what do we need to do to, not just retain our position, but actually excel well and truly beyond that.
Yeah, we can walk and chew gum at the same time at VV. Felicia, please don't ask.
Really? They tell me the boys can't do that, Brendan.
You obviously haven't seen our staffing profile. Every skewed female, as you can see.
Behind my husband all the time, and that's problematic for guys.
Right. No, but we have got an eye on the future, and I saw an earlier question. Have no doubt that we're thinking major events well beyond.
Absolutely.
We're not done with that major events calendar. We're not done for 22, and we're certainly well placed after that.
Yeah, thanks, Brendan. I couldn't get to everything there. I was trying to pick some of the highlights. So nice that you could touch on that comment, and thanks for doing that, because it was one that came up. Just in terms of what's next, we've had a real action-packed week this week and last Thursday as well, but we still have a couple more on the agenda. The one tomorrow, and it was interesting again, Natalie, listen to you talk about your staff and the concern for your staff and what staff are feeling right now. The session we're doing tomorrow is another workshop with our partners in well-being, and really looking at this whole back to work well-being. And while there's been a whole lot of focus over the last many months on the business owners and on the management and the challenges that have been presented to the business owners, we're now recognizing that we've got a lot of anxiety within our staff, and we need to do something to help them as well. So the session tomorrow will be a back to work well-being. We would encourage you to attend and encourage your staff to attend as well. And on Friday the 29th, this is a really, really important one, because we've already had 2 contacts today about this. From 11 until 1, there'll be a 2-hour session on what to do if you have a confirmed COVID outbreak in your business. Now, the goalposts are changing on this almost daily, and one of the reasons we put it on last is because we're hoping to make sure that we have the most up-to-date contemporary data to share with you. Alan Briggs, who did the session with us yesterday around aggressive behaviour, is going to be conducting this session. I would encourage everyone, please make sure that you book in for this. This is actually really critical, because things are changing in the way we're going to be handling if you are named as a tier 1 COVID exposure site. So it will be a really great session that we'll be doing on Friday the 29th from 11 until 1 o'clock. So again, thank you all. Brendan, Shae, Natalie, thank you so much. It's always a pleasure to have a chance to share so much of the insights that you guys have with industry. I know everyone really appreciates it. And Natalie, terrific you could bring an industry perspective to all of this as well.
Pleasure.
Absolutely.
Great to be part of.
Felicia.